everything you need to know about infrastructure, the creation of jobs, how to orientate your company or your idea towards what works in infrastructure. We've got all those, including women and youth in that industry. So that's for this morning. And then we go to the main program, which begins 1 p.m. today with the opening. It ends at 6. We've got 2 panels later in the day. And then tomorrow, we've got 6 panels, I believe, for the entire day. And we're going to have a lot of very important people here. It's not just about what we discuss. And what we discuss, by the way, is very important because we discuss practical issues which lead to actionable policies and then to bankable projects. And so wherever you are in the economic ecosystem or the economic space, as where you would be able to find your joy. And then obviously for the third day we've got the presidential and business leaders dialogues, where we're going to see the big guys roll into town. We've had confirmations from about 7 African leaders, heads of state who are supposed to make a presence over here. And then we're going to have the APCA, that's the Africa Prosperity Champions Awards. And we're going to be honoring quite a number of people. I can't give you the list of the people. Now, the jury decided that's a group of lawyers with the advisory council chaired by Her Excellency Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, former AU commissioner. So it's quite big. And then we're also obviously going to have our main institutional partner, that is AFCFTA, represented by His Excellency the Secretary General, who is Wamkelemene.
That's right.
Yes. I had a brain freeze over that.
In everything you said, I've sort of seen a graduation from the initial or the very first edition, which was under the theme AFCFTA, from ambition to action. We saw the Peduase, communique issued after that. Interoperability at the time became a critical concern. Since then, we've seen Ghana, I think Togo, Benin, and I believe Cote d'Ivoire quite far advanced in at least telephony interoperability. There's mobile money interoperability being talked about. There's PAPS being pushed heavily. And so it clearly demonstrates that the Africa Prosperity Dialogues is not your regular talk shop. And that, as you say, it goes from key conversations to actionable policies to bankable projects. Now, how does this year's theme build, and add another layer to this wonderful platform that's growing year in, year out?
It's a wonderful question. Now, this is narrative building. And so you saw, you mentioned our first theme, from ambition to action. And that's what we've been doing. I love your memory, by the way, from practical discussions to actionable policies to bankable projects. So it made sense to start from ambition to action. And so you can see this in the way we organize our stuff. And by the way, for those who are interested in intellectual stuff, especially for the mice industry, for us, we've got 2 strategic frameworks that come together, and it works for us. The thing is, we do have what we call enabling pillars, and then we've got delivery pillars. The enabling pillars, of course, would have to do with policy, and then delivery would have to do with implementation, as that's right. And so you would see this in how we structure everything that we do. From the organization, the hierarchical organization, which is a bit Republican at the Africa Prosperity Network, because every person who works over there is important, and everyone has been separated into these 2 categories. So you can see it over there, how it works at the network, at the secretariat, and then how it works with the way we roll out our plans and our events. We've got the policy side, and we've got the implementation side. And so thanks for bringing that to mind. And so that's what we do basically. Yeah.
You know, it's not surprising that for me, and I'm just trying to, you know, take a quick walk through the theme from the very first version, the very first edition in 2023, where we talked about from ambition to action, and then we went on to
value addition.
Value addition, produce, add value, and trade. And it's critical that we see the infrastructure conversation, because infrastructure pretty much anchors every dream. I mean, the AFCFTA dream
Hey, you saw how I looked at him.
We've been sitting here talking, and the thing was not
20,000 votes activated, and I'm told I've wasted it.
We have to apologize to Tanisha.
Tanisha, the radio went off, so we've been talking into empty space. Hey.
If you're really doing an interview, no, we thought we were on air, so you know, both of us stopped. We were supposed to be on air. Also, you were the last 10 minutes. We were having a conversation. Was it being recorded? No. Well, 20,000 Let's plan on how we're gonna go. You're still listening to the Asasi Breakfast Show, and this is me, Kweku Inshira-Ado, and I'm now at the Africa Prosperity Dialogues happening at the Accra International Conference Center. And as you know, this year's theme is delivering the single market through infrastructure. Or the African single market through infrastructure. The very first edition of the Africa Prosperity Dialogues looked at the theme that the AFCFTA from ambition to action. The second one talked about producing, adding value, and trading. But we have come to accept that infrastructure makes all of these things and the overall vision of the AFCFTA possible. Now, to help us understand what the core themes of the conversation are likely to be and what these could lead to by way of actionable policies, I've got with me Toma Emere. You hear Toma very often on the Asasi Business Roundtable, but he's a man who has been an economics and finance analyst for as long as the Earth has been in orbit. Toma, welcome to the Asasi Breakfast Show.
Thank you, Kweku.
Good to see you always, man.
Yeah.
And I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
Good to be here.
Let me plunder your brain, and I want to start by asking you, if you were to group the infrastructure conversation into maybe three key pillars, would you agree that the physical infrastructure, which will speak to energy, then the broad area of energy, then there's the what I will call the connective infrastructure or facilitative infrastructure, so road, highways, railways, airways, and seaways or waterways.
Correct.
And then you now have the digital, the intangible infrastructure,
Precisely.
where cross-border innovation is enhanced so that there can be creators sitting here in Accra and be able to liaise with people in Cairo, Tunis, Zanzibar, and Nairobi. You agree that
I agree totally.
Fantastic.
100%
So
correct.
now that we've agreed that these are the three core areas, let's start with energy. And I'm starting with energy largely because the mischief in me can't help but rear its dodgy head. Energy is a critical thing.
Yeah.
It's been described that Africa's dream of industrialization is hinged on deep energy. Where do you think that the conversations will focus in terms of what Africa would need to do to recognize the single market vision as far as energy is concerned? Taking into account that some people are telling us that we should start doing transition on the energy. We didn't even jump, but we're being asked to fly.
Well, first of all, let me start with the transition. You see, if you look at the sheer costs of transition to renewables for Africa, we don't have the money. Even if we had the technology, we don't either. So I think we should be a bit more reasonable and look at greener energies than what we have been using, which is hardcore carbon fuels. You know, diesel. Look, we have a lot of potential for hydro. I have a lot of potential for gas.
Okay.
Energy, which are put to fuel up Africa, which are much cleaner than fuel. So I voice suggest that we start from there as step one, where we're looking towards gradually increasing green energy sources. Right now, just know, there's one project which is awaiting financing, the Grand Inga Dam in the Nile Basin, which I understand has the potential to fuel up most of the continent. Okay, but anyway, let's put that aside since it has not yet been done. I would expect here that we need to discuss how we can connect the various regional energy pools. You see, North Africa has a common energy pool. West Africa has one. East and Central Africa has one. Southern Africa has one.
Okay.
Now, most countries in Africa have energy deficits. But these ones that have energy, the ones that have potentials for energy surpluses are also there. What Africa needs to look at now is converting those potentials into actuality. Right? So you have eventually you have some of the regional power pools having surplus energy, which can supply those that have energy deficits. You see, connecting Africa on a Pan-African basis because of energy is technologically challenging. So what we need to do is connecting the regions, the sub-regions. For example, the West African power pool. If you can exploit all the potential for gas for the West African power pool, the West African power pool could actually have excess energy. You can export some to a region that has a deficit, like Central Africa, for example, has a deficit, right? The East Africa power pool, where the Grand Inga Dam is situated, has the potential for so much surplus energy, supply some regions that have less than enough energy. But connecting them is going to require a lot of money. So you will need to work on the economics of this energy. Because it's going to require a lot of long-term finance. But most importantly, it's going to require commercial tariffs, which has always been the problem in Africa. Because we want to win elections, so we charge below market tariffs. And we cannot recoup our monies.
I mean, the two things I glean from what you've just said: long-term financing, commercial tariffs.
Exactly.
And for me, when you talk about long-term financing and commercial tariffs, it leads to the conversation around public-private partnerships. And it is often said that the reason you don't see a lot of public-private partnerships happening here on the continent is largely because of this little whirlpool that politicians create, where the investor does not see a route to recouping their investment and getting a decent profit because of populist policies that would drop tariff rates. Now, doesn't that create a catch-22 for the desire to actually see the Africa single market become a reality? And if it is, what would you say should be the outcomes of the deliberations here at the Africa Prosperity Dialogues 2025 to bring about a change in mindset for our leaders and to give the assurance to the investor community that we can now look to the continent and invest in long-term infrastructure, knowing full well that we'll get our money back?
Okay. Well, first of all, we should start by our leaders asking themselves, do they think that a situation where they have an energy deficit and they have power outages, is that going to help them win the next election? Look, in Ghana here, in 2016, the power outages of the previous 4 years were one of the main reasons why the government that time lost the election. Okay, so I've always maintained the expensive power is better than no power at all. Look, take two scenarios. Right now you operate like what Ghana is now, operating below full recovery. If you do the maths, you will know, just back of envelope maths, you know that we're not doing full recovery in Ghana. The dollar is now cost 4 times what it used to cost, and the tariffs have definitely not increased. They have not even doubled. So there's something wrong somewhere, you know. And you know the immediate past MD of electricity company of Ghana said that the problem we have is that we buy the power in dollars and we sell it in cedis. And he's right.
Absolutely.
He's right.
And for those who may wonder why you make the reference to the dollar rising 4 times and the tariffs have not even doubled, that's the crux of it.
That's the crux of it.
We're buying in US dollars, we're selling at low tariffs in cedis. So there's already, from day zero, there's a deficit.
Yeah.
Because you need to buy a lot more cedis to be able to get the dollar.
Yeah.
And this is because we don't have our power all in hydro. Okay, we have a mix of thermal, gas, and hydro. And that's where the bulk of your fuel purchases heavily financed by the US dollar.
Yeah.
All right. Carry on.
And you know that, I mean, since you are having to finance the fuel prices with dollars, no matter how much cedis you are collecting, the more cedis you even collect, the more cities are now pursuing the limited amount of dollars you have. So the worse the situation gets in terms of the exchange rate. So it becomes a vicious cycle. The exchange rate alone will force you to increase your tariffs, and because of political reasons, you don't want to increase the tariffs to cover what's necessary. So you end up under recovering. Now, as you said, look, this is the major reason why people's energy sector become a problem. The IPPs in Ghana, for example, are being owed. They're having problems getting their monies, all right? Partly because of under recovery, partly because they will need foreign exchange to import the feedstock.
How do you foresee, sorry for interrupting, but how do you foresee a change for the better in terms of the policy position of politicians and governments as far as our energy needs and pricing is concerned, vis-a-vis the concept of running an energy pool across the various regions?
Well, first of all, the politicians need to come to the realization that expensive power is better than no power at all. Look, I'm sure even the average Ghanaian household will admit that they will provide a situation where tariffs are higher, but the light is consistent, than for the tariffs to remain where they are and they only have 12 hours of light in a day. Look, if you have expensive power, you manage your power. Cut the wastage. Put off your freezer when you're not at home. Don't leave your TV on, the lights on throughout the night when you can do without them. You can pick and choose what you want to use and what you don't want to use. But when there's no power at all, even in the biggest emergency, you won't have power to address the problem. And we all know about people who have died in operating theaters in Ghana because the lights went off unexpectedly. So the politicians need to come to that realization that the very people they want the votes for would prefer to have expensive power than no power at all. That's common sense. Then secondly, a proposal has been made in some quarters. I have my worries about it, but it's a proposal has been made that we need to look at. And that's the idea of a dual tariff structure.
Okay.
Right. Look, here we do it. You know, we have lower tariffs for the least.
So what we call the lifeline
exactly.
customers.
Exactly.
So there's two tiers.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, you shouldn't charge somebody in Nima the same rate we charge Unilever.
But then there's, concerns that actually you probably end up getting far more consumption from the person in Nima, because these are areas that are also requiring smart regulation, being able to track who's using and drawing how much power. Because where you've got unregulated settlements or very dense clusters, it means that power theft becomes a problem. And so you may be charging somebody per geographical location a lifeline price, but really their demand on the grid is as high as some industries.
That's where the PPP comes in. If ECG was privately owned, and the regulation and metering of power consumption would be much better than what it is today.
Okay.
Than what it is today. The whole idea of populist energy policies is because government is the power provider. If it was private, if power was being provided through private capital, efficiency would be much higher. That 40% transmission losses, losses we have for inefficiencies, will be cut in half at least. You know, it will involve higher tariffs. But look, first of all, if you increase your energy, I said, the common sense tells me that expensive energy is better than no energy at all. Then secondly, it will fuel the industrialization that that Africa is looking for. We are talking about after. All right? But what's the point of after if we don't have power to power up the industries to manufacture goods which we can trade within Africa? And you end up just trading tomatoes and onions. You know, those things create economic prosperity. Look, the prosperity the Western Hemisphere enjoys started up from being able to power the industries and distribute their goods efficiently. That's the prosperity that has now come, that has led to improvements in technology and everything, has led to the high standard of living they're having. If you cannot power up your energies, you will not be able to power up prosperity across Africa. You have to start from somewhere. But I think it's complicated because the problem is that the very government that now allows the tariffs to go up stands to lose at the next election, which is anathema to the political class.
But how do the politicians then cure that problem? Because a commercial tariff, a well-run power or energy sector, where there's better efficiencies, is required. It's a necessity. So we cannot dream of progress unless we're doing these things.
Look, the only way to overcome the problem is to reduce the political partisanship. That is the simple truth. Look, the government is in power, okay, and wants to do the right thing. It knows what the right thing and wants to do it. The problem is that party knows that when it does the right thing, the opposition is going to convince everybody that he has done the wrong thing at the expense of the people in order to win power at the next election, right? So what happens is that, you see, the political opposition now becomes part of the problem by persuading the incumbent government to do what is politically expedient and what is economically pragmatic. Now, until we can start overcoming that issue, we're not going to get anywhere. I mean, look at America, for example. Look at the debates over taxes and tariffs and trade policy in America. Why it is going on? The Democrats might take one side, the Republicans take one side. But it is not strictly partisan along party lines. The people who are involved in the debate will look at what they think is the best for America. Same thing happens in the House of Lords and the House of Commons in England and in European parliaments. Here is strictly along partisan lines, and the party will tell their lawmakers that, hey, look, your first, if you are in opposition, the first job you have is to get power from the ruling party. So criticize everything they do. When they come with the right policies, try and block them. So that is the very first step. All right, partisanship. Now, the second step is ceding power to the private sector.
Because really, the power government has is to create a fair, equitable environment for the private sector to thrive.
But the problem is that the government does not want to let go of power because they feel that the power can be used to get them votes. But when you look at it, you will notice that most things government does with the power they have kept for themselves, not good for the people in the long run. Populism does not develop countries. Populism wins the next election. So we need a situation where government will cede power to the private sector and regulate the private sector to make sure the private sector does not take advantage of the power it has been given by making supernormal profits, for instance. But we need the private sector efficiency in terms of the operations of economic actors.
Great. Now, we've talked a bit about the power or energy in general. Of course, it's critical. Now, the connective infrastructure. We know that our beloved N1 is part of a grand plan to have a highway across West Africa, for example. I don't know to what extent vision has been advanced. But is that the kind of vision need to see the AFCFTA facilitate movement of goods and services?
Okay, well, that Trans-West Africa Highway, it has gone far. The webinar that the African Prosperity Network
That's right,
did
of last week, yeah.
This, I mean, people from the ministry said that they've gone quite far. But to me, the more pertinent question is that what we really need? I made a presentation at that webinar, and my argument was this. If you move goods across 6 country borders by roads, you are bound to have problems. Because even though there's the ECOWAS trade liberalization scheme, and across Africa is a wider African continental free trade area, we all know how difficult it is moving goods across borders by road. That's one. 2, the sheer distance creates problems. Hey, look, compare Africa to the size of Europe. Africa is vast, and a lot of the terrain is not the most hospitable. We have deserts separating north from sub-Saharan Africa, and we have the Kalahari Desert down south. All right, building roads through these places is going to be a problem anyway.
Well, fortunately, you've got options, right? So you could consider rail, you could also consider seaports.
That is the point.
But the funny thing with our seaports, and I'm on that one, for example, if you were shipping something from Ghana to Gambia, I bet, and forgive my potential ignorance, that you may have to see your shipment sit on a ship that will go to Europe before it comes back.
Now this is where the APD, I hope, will come in. Look, see, what you are saying is very, very true. Now, in order to try and solve the problem, the Federation of West African Chambers of Commerce and Industry has been trying for years to get investors to invest in a shipping line that will just run along the west coast of Africa. You know, maybe starting from Banjul or Dakar and coming across all the ports, coming towards the center. You know, including Takoradi and Tema, then on to Lome, then on to Cotonou, then on to Lagos, then on to Port Harcourt, possibly going as far as Yaoundé. Now, so far, they have not been able to raise the capital, largely because the potential investors are saying, what is the volume of cargo trade that such a shipping line will pick up? Now, that is a chicken and egg situation.
Indeed.
In fact, if there was a shipping line like that, trade would increase. The reason why there's not so much trade is because moving the goods is difficult. Hey, look at Ghana, look at cocoa processing company chocolate, or these niche chocolate makers that have sprung up across Ghana. If they try to move their chocolate to Nigeria, which is a huge market, which buys a lot of chocolate from Europe, which is more sugar than cocoa, and they'll just give you a toothache and diabetes. All right. Now, if you try to move what I would call superior quality Ghanaian chocolate there, and you try to move by road, your first problem is at Aflau.
Yeah. You got to deal with Aflau on both ends.
On both ends. Could you go when you get to Nigeria alone, the number of checkpoints from the semi border to Lagos, and you have to keep bribing officials along the way. I argue that now, if there was a shipping line that was running along the west coast of Africa, you could load your chocolate at Tema and offload it directly at Lagos. There will be bigger incentive to try to sell Ghanaian chocolate in Nigeria.
It speaks of great opportunities.
Yeah, so what you do is, look, there are seaports all around Africa. So what you do is use those seaports as hubs. All the seaports have transit trade connections to the landlocked countries inside.
Yeah.
So what you do is just use seaport as a hub.
Kenya is serving Uganda,
Exactly.
serving.
Yeah. So you build the roads inwards from the seaport to the landlocked countries, and eventually you start working out making railways for large bulk cargo haulage along those routes. So for me, it's not the Trans-West African highway that goes along the coast. That's what we need. What we need is shipping line that will move the goods by sea, then highways that go from the ports inwards into the landlocked countries.
Would you say that if you had to consider where you'd probably make the most saving and bring more efficiencies to the expenditure, that you'd place rail over road in this context? Should we think about the same idea you propose for roads from port hubs to inward landlocked countries? Should we look to bridge that gap by rail instead of
now see, here's the thing, all right? Now, the last time I interviewed the head of Ghana Railway Development Corporation. He told me that, look, if they complete the planned railway from Tema through Accra to Kumasi, the cost per passenger will be higher, significantly higher than what STC charges but going by road. I was surprised, but well, it is what it is. Okay. However, the argument has also come up that, look, the sheer convenience of going by roads, by going by rail, would encourage some people to pay a premium and go by train. No traffic. I mean, it's faster, it's more convenient, right? But beyond that, what I would say is that put passengers aside. You need rail for bulk cargo. What one train can carry? Imagine how many tipper trucks you need. Imagine how much petrol it will consume. No matter how much danger you put on the roads, no matter how much, imagine how much traffic you create on the roads. You just have to pay. Look, we in Africa, but you have to realize that the good things of life are not free. What's free is what God gives us, the air we breathe. But the things we make, the things we trade, you have to pay for them. So I think that yes, we need railways. Look, we could consider something. Please tell me which developed country there is in the world that doesn't have a functional railway system.
We don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Exactly. So we do need the railway. We do need the railway system. In fact, when the Akufo-Addo government came to power with his plans, I was predicting that would be the biggest legacy, the railway system. But it shows that things move slowly, which I'm going to come to that issue now. Things tend to move slowly. They've done a lot of feasibility studies, but they have not been able to get financial closure for financing. And that is one thing. So that's one thing that this African Prosperity Dialogue needs to look at. We need to come up. We need to suggest a proper strategy for connecting countries in terms of physical transport infrastructure, and start designing the projects. It's not a matter to keep on talking about the fact that we need these things, we need these things. We need to start designing projects that are bankable and go look for the money. That should be the next step. Look, we all know that it would be good to have a railway from Accra to Ouagadougou. We've known it for a long time. We've been doing feasibility studies on that. But how much closer have we got to getting it? So how much closer have we got to actually getting such a railway? First of all, we need to look at Africa as a whole. Develop a strategy for connecting the countries. As I've suggested, using the seaports as regional hubs, sub-regional hubs, and building roads inwards. whichever way, whichever strategy they decide to adopt, we need to adopt a strategy and start developing bankable, investable projects that will make that strategy a reality and selling them to investors. You know, Africa physically. It makes digital infrastructure, digital trade absolutely key. You see, because look, in Europe, let's assume you're in London and you want to have a meeting with potential distributors of your products in Paris, for example. Apart from just taking a plane and doing a short hop by air, you could even decide to get into a train, cross the channel, the English channel, by Euro channel, and you're in Paris. Now, look at a similar move in West Africa. You want to connect Ouagadougou from Accra. Well, I suppose you can do it via Spain or Portugal. But flying direct, where are you going to get the flights? And if you go by road, it's going to take you about 3 days. So, digital communication of documents, video conferencing, things that are absolutely essential, and digital marketing, they are all absolutely essential. Now, here's the thing. Africa has been aware that we need to bridge the digital divide. We've been aware of it for quite some time. All right. To varying degrees, we have put infrastructure in place. I'm happy to report that Ghana is one who's at the cutting edge in terms of that. We put some of the things in. But the problem is that our infrastructure do not talk with each other. Our infrastructure do not talk with each other. So you have a situation where, let's take MTN. MTN is in about 17 countries across Africa. But there are some MTN countries, there are some countries where MTN operates, where you have an MTN number here, and you cannot do business facilitated by the MTN network with the MTN network in another African country. Beyond that, there are so many different network providers who can't, and there's no interconnectivity between networks. So you're here in Ghana, and Safaricom, you have a Safaricom subscriber in Kenya or Uganda. How do they do business? How do they do business? You know, so we need to actually sit down and work at ways to achieve interoperability of the various networks, which means using the same standards and similar technologies. I'm happy to say that this is one area in which the African Prosperity Dialogues have achieved quite some headway. You know, advocating for interoperability and actually making strong cases at technical meetings between people who have the corporate authority to make decisions that will create interoperability. But we need to work harder at it. We need to work harder at it. So that so I was talking about shipping Ghanaian chocolate selling in Nigeria. Okay. But you need a situation where, apart from shipping the chocolate to Nigeria, in Ghana here, you're able to market the chocolate through digital means. You're able to accept orders for distributors. You're able to market your product. You're able to come to agreements about financing, about purchases and sales, and even about simple due diligence, because you know that one of the major problems that has constrained intra-African trade so far is lack of faith. There are lack of faith in each other. If somebody told you that your potential partner for intra-African trade is Nigerian, how will you feel?
Well, that's a loaded question, Toma. That's a loaded question. I mean, it's critical, you know, and I'm inclined to think that we're going to need to make some major investments. I mean, if you look at what's happening in the tech space globally, how will, and let's face this, that whether we're one major economic bloc or single market, we're in competition with other markets. There's the geopolitics comes down to the economics, whether you like it or not. How do we leverage the desire we have and the connectivity that we seek to put in place across the continent to also advance the sovereignty of our single market, if you get the concept? You know, because we're in competition with other people. Do we have the technology, you know, on the continent to be able to bridge the connectivity divide?
I think we put our minds to it, we do. Look, Kuku, we have a thriving financial technology market in Ghana, in Africa. Even to the extent that there are so many fintechs in Ghana, indigenous owned fintechs, who have been bought by foreign companies, who have left the owners in charge. For example, remember the company used to be called SMS Ghana, which is now Hubtel. SMS Ghana was bought by an American company, renamed it Hubtel. But they left the guys who started it in charge. They left the management in charge because they saw the potential, they saw the capacities that that company has. Look, there are lots of companies around Africa, indigenous African countries like that. Now, what we need to do is start incentivizing those fintechs to start come up with apps that allow different networks across the continent to talk to each other, rather than just investing on what they call the low hanging fruit, which means bringing up digital projects for banks and insurance companies within their own sovereign jurisdiction. You know, so instead of a fintech in Ghana, for example, developing digital projects for EcoBank or GCB Bank or something, the fintech would now work about developing an app that allows you to transfer money by mobile money from an MTN network in Ghana to a Safaricom network in Kenya.
You make a great point, Toma. Well, I'm talking to Toma Emira. He is a financial and economic analyst. Man's been doing this for as long as the Earth has been in orbit, as I said earlier. And I'm plundering his fine brain this morning to sort of look at the components of the theme of the Africa Prosperity Dialogues this year, which is to basically look towards delivering Africa's single market through infrastructure, which is the thing that underpins any great venture such as that. And it's looking to invest, connect, and integrate. In the meantime, if you are out there driving, well, you're going to need fuel. And Gold Super XP is the fuel of choice because it is suitable for most vehicles. And is the ideal choice because it is fortified with special additives that gives longevity to your engine and enjoys your engine performance to the max. It also uses minimal fuel, so essentially more miles per gallon if you're buying Gold Super XP. Check out a Gold station with a signed Super XP and go in there and fuel up your vehicle. Gold Super XP, Wufilia, Wubefili. Gold, good energy. Before Toma, you leave, we're talking just a moment about, connecting the continent through the digital space. Well, if you are looking for sharp internet, well, you can switch to Telecel Fixed Broadband today and experience incredible bonuses, non-expiry of your bundles, data transfers across devices, and lots more. Customers who are new get 50% bonus data in addition to other mind-blowing offers, and existing customers receive 300% bonus data on every broadband renewal to keep browsing. To subscribe, go to a Telecel retail outlet or the website telecel.com.gh or dial star 900 hash. Better still, you can download the Telecel Play app and use it to get connected today. Terms and conditions apply. Telecel, connecting energies. Thomas, final question. Where do you see youth playing a role in ensuring that we're leveraging technology to bring us not just closer, but to grow this market?
In terms of leveraging technology, the youth is the future. Look, Kweku, people like me, I'm a dinosaur. You know,
you've been doing this since the earth has been in orbit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There are things my son can do for me on my phone that he's not even been able to teach me how to do these yet. So I just have him as my consultant. Every time I need anything done, come, please come do this.
I hope you're paying a fair wage for that.
I am, because I need him. But you see, the fact that the youths have grown up in the digital environment. The things that are challenging to people like me and people of my age, for them it's easy. All right. Now, these are the people who are developing the new apps. Look at the fintechs.
Yeah.
They're all basically run by young people. These are the people who can drive digital interconnectivity in Africa. You shouldn't just leave it to the big networks, the NTNs and the Telcels and co. You need these young gentlemen and ladies driven fintechs who can create the apps that allow the networks to talk to each other across countries.
Great.
And you need such young people too in the regulatory institutions.
Great.
To make sure that they come up with the right regulation to allow such talking between networks to take place, so that you can transfer money through MTN from Accra to a Safaricom customer in Kenya, with the approval of both the Bank of Ghana and the Kenyan Central Bank, for example. That was purely in the area of the young, upcoming people across Africa.
The future indeed is bright, and hopefully we can see this single market dream come to life in our time. Toma Emire, thank you so much for joining us on the ABS.
Quickly, it's always a pleasure, man. I enjoy talking with you.
I do too. Thanks very much for joining us. We're going to take a short commercial break. When we come back, we'll be talking to the Chief Operating Officer of the Africa Prosperity Network, and we'll be exploring again more of what the Africa Prosperity Dialogues seeks to offer, or will indeed offer, from today through to Saturday. Stay with us. This is the Assassin Breakfast Show.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
not been briefed, but I'll take it as we go. We'll try.
Welcome back. We're still coming to you live from the Accra International Conference Center, where the Africa Prosperity Dialogues 2025 is set to, well, it started. A number of conversations being had this morning, some workshops already ongoing, and we're joined by Dr. Nyako Pong, who is the Chief Operating Officer of the Africa Prosperity Network. Kofi, you're welcome.
Thank you very much, Joe. Good morning to you.
Good morning
to your viewers and listeners.
I'm keen to learn about how much work has gone into putting this together, because if you look at the transformation of the Accra International Conference Center, it's beyond anything I have seen here before.
Right. As you can imagine, it's not been easy. It's been, a number of sleepless nights and a dedicated team of over, 30 strong-willed and committed staff with several volunteers to pull this off. Okay. And, this has been a year of planning, right from our retreat, which started after the last edition of the Africa Prosperity Dialogues 2024, which was in February of last year. So right from March of last year, this has been going into a lot of planning, and what you're seeing here is the fruit of the execution, right? So, I mean, it's a well-balanced team, right, from our content to our communication to our research department, right, to even monitoring and evaluation, our protocol desk, our partnership desk, and to several others. I have been very, very impressed with the work that we've done so far, and I'm very, very certain we are going to deliver an amazing conference.
Now, as of yesterday, more than 4,500 people had been confirmed as attending this, and today starting with workshops. Are these workshops directly linked to, what is the essence of these workshops, and what areas are they covering?
Right. So, as you can imagine, this is the third edition of the Africa Prosperity Dialogues, and as the editions come up, we try to expand the program and not just limit it at just the main dialogue. So, this year, two new things are happening: the exhibition and the breakfast meetings. And so the breakfast meetings just seek to engage the youth, women in trade, SMEs, and the legal system. Okay, this is your chance to be very, very interactive, upfront, up close conversation with key stakeholders. And so the essence of these breakfast meetings is to tease out, as it were, the information from the core theme, which will be dissected right from the opening ceremony in the afternoon. And so we have 4 rooms with 6 strong conversations going on right from now until midday. And these conversations will tackle women in trade, it will tackle youth, it will tackle private-public partnerships, it will tackle digital innovation and infrastructure and payment system by PAPS. It's going to tackle venture capital and funding. And so, participants are sport for choice. In a sense, you can just decide where you want to go, sit in there, and, just have a feel of what it is like before the main plenary session begins.
As with the very first edition of the Africa Prosperity Dialogues, there was a policy document at the end of it, made its way all the way to the Africa Union. What is the plan for ensuring that the tradition continues?
Right. So, as you rightfully said, last year we came out with a compact, and this compact was presented at the AU Heads of State meeting in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. Now, the core thing we pushed a number of items, over 21 items, but then the main thing we focused on last year for advocacy was on mobile interoperability and payment systems. And as it were, the conversation is still going on. We are trying to get many of the member states in Africa sign up to this framework so that within, say, 5 years, mobile money interoperability will be achieved, and a person, in Ghana can send money to someone in Nairobi or Kenya or Harare, Zimbabwe, for instance. And so that tradition is going to continue this year as well. From these 2 days, today and Friday, there's going to be an outcome document when the policy leaders sit down. Now, right from this outcome document, when they meet with the policymakers on Saturday, then the compact will be developed and hopefully adopted and then presented at the AU Heads of States meeting in Addis Ababa by a new president. Now, we are very grateful for their patronage and their support so far, and so we are very certain that as his colleagues would be here on Saturday, he would also show up and then, push this forward and support the narrative that we are trying to build the Africa we want.
Now, when all of this is said and done, I'm sure you'll have a review meeting where you'll look back and say, these are the targets we set for ourselves. What will success look like?
Well, success will mean a very successful dialogue. Number one, we want to look at key infrastructural projects that we can highlight. I mean, take for instance the Grand Inga Dam, which has the capacity of powering the entire African continent. The Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, capacity and potential of powering the whole East African continent. We want to identify specific infrastructural projects that we can highlight, and then not just highlight, but deals to be struck to fund them. So funding and building this infrastructure that connects the continent's various regions. Okay, infrastructure is the basic framework. Okay, or it's an important and integral part of moving forward and transforming the continent. And as the central theme is focused on delivering Africa's single market through infrastructure, when we've identified this, and we are not just talking about physical infrastructure, we are talking about soft infrastructure like digital infrastructure as well. We want people to highlight, and we have investment bankers on the panel, we have heads of multilateral financial institutions. Let them identify how we can fund for these projects, strike deals agreements to get them taken off. There's a 7.1% GDP that we have to invest annually to bridge our infrastructure gap in sub-Saharan Africa. That is a lot. Okay, AFDB tells us there's $100 billion that we have to invest annually. How are we going to get the money? We want to tease out these issues at the dialogues. So success will look at identifying these priorities, highlighting them, and bringing actionable policies to deliver bankable projects to make this effective.
Great stuff. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Kofi Nyakopon, for talking to us. And I'm confident that if we gather again to look at the next edition of the Africa Prosperity Dialogues, we would have seen the needle move further in doing its part to ensure that you the single market dream.
Absolutely.
Nice talking to you.
Thank you for
Great. Well, it's 43 minutes past 9, and well, let me bring you up to speed. Today is the 30th of January. And we're handing you back to the studio. But remember, in the month of February, we'll be celebrating love. It's the, No Ordinary Love promotion on Asasi. If you tune into 99.5, you will be able to join on the breakfast show, Asasi Cafe Russia, and After Dark, where you send us a voice note, 1-minute voice note, with a love story that stands out. And 5 winners will be joining us for the No Ordinary Love Night at the plush, luxurious hotel here in Ghana. The number to send your WhatsApp to is 020-000995. And you can call 020-000-9954 to participate as a partner if you want to leverage on the reach of this love promotion to get out to some target audience with your brand. And don't forget that we now have the Planet Sports Football Africa. It airs at 6:30 every Friday on Asasi 99.5 and our sister radio stations across the nation. And it's presented by Steve Vickers, who's a guy who's been probably covered more African football than anyone else, all the way from Harare, Zimbabwe. Stay with us for more on the Asasi Breakfast Show. We're crossing over to the studio at this point. Thank you for joining us.